Rima, or hi everyone, and welcome to Grow Make Cook. This week is a bit of a quiet week in the garden. There has been so many wonderful, sweeping, swooping, tweeting birds to watch that I've hardly remembered to actually do anything in the garden.
Bok, I'm Mandy O. This is Grow Make Cook and welcome to my garden. I grew up in Australia in a permaculture family, but after we got married, Mr. O and I moved here to his home country of Croatia. I am a passionate and hands-on homemaker and gardener, and I love life's simple pleasures. So join me on my journey, and together we can learn to grow, make and cook. This is the third week in October, or listopad.
What I'm doing here is just getting all of the prunings, and these were summer prunings that we did a while ago, as you can see by the fact that the leaves are all dead and brown, but the stems are still bendy. There's still some moisture in them. And so I'm just stripping all this old pruning material. I've taken the smaller sticks, the really bendy ones, and I'm stripping them of leaves and little twigs. And this is so I can do some running repairs on my garden bed edges. They're looking a little shabby. Down here, under our lovely new garden bench, I'm making a new patch of fence, and that is because this edge was previously a big log. Now that log broke down, it rotted, and when I went to sit on it I fell right through it. So we have replaced my old log for sitting on with something a little bit more durable, I'm hoping, but that also means I now need to remake and reassess my garden bed edges. And this has shown me something, and that something is that actually a lot of my garden bed edges, which are just made like this with upright sticks and then little twigs really, but long bits of pruning woven in between just to make a sort of barrier, a lot of them are in quite a state of disrepair. They are falling apart, sticks have started to rot, some of them have even got mushrooms growing on them. I need to do some serious maintenance. So, this is the next step of my build-along garden. So until now we have marked it out, we used some sticks to mark out where we were putting the edges, we put the edge down of the bricks, whoops, we dug a really big hole, then we filled the bottom with lots of big bits of wood, and then we've put a good layer of compost on top. So this now is back to level with the ground level that it was before, but we need to, now that it's gotten really wet, I had to water it a couple of times because the rain that was forecast never happened, but it got watered and now we shovel it in. Take that weed out. I'm always amazed at just how much soil fits in one of these beds, but the job is not over. We've refilled most of the soil back into here, but now I'm going to have to find more bricks and actually raise this bed up. And I'm going to need time, effort, and I think a cup of tea before I do that. So let's go and check out something else. Now, down here you can see where I have double planted. So I sowed these broad beans and I also sprinkled a little bit of matovilat seed or corn salad or smash in here, hoping that I would get an early crop of matovilats for winter salads and then a late crop in next spring So the late crop would be the broad beans, they would come through after, and the matovillards would come through first. Well, a whole lot of odd has been happening here recently. We have had the strangest, warmest weather for the middle of October. It's just stayed consistent. It got cool, we needed jumpers, and then it's just stayed that way. It never progressed into that next stage of the cold, frosty autumn. It's just stayed warm, cool warm. Autumn warm? I don't know. The point is, the weather has been unusual and the soil has stayed very warm. And I'm thinking this is just another one of those things that we are going to have to learn to adapt and change, because all my broad beans have sprouted and are growing. There are so many of these, I'm going to call them mysteries, but I think it's just the way that the world is changing with climate change and everything that goes with that. I mean, as gardeners, we have always had to contend with bugs and the weather and all kinds of things that get thrown at us. But now with this unexpected an unusual challenge that the climate as a whole, not just the rainy days and the sunny days, but the way that autumn becomes a much faster season to arrive and then lingers. These changes we can't predict, and it really makes you think about how can I plan for this in my garden. And so I think I'm going to try a little experiment. I am going to keep my plants in for as long as I possibly can. I know this goes against a lot of the advice that you would get in gardening books, but I think what I'm going to do is just try and keep my plants until they die. I'm going to stop ripping things up when the season is over for them and just see what the plants do to the new environment that we've got. I think that this principle of observing what happens, what do these plants do naturally, is really in line with the thinking that you get in a lot of permaculture, which is about observing what happens in nature and seeing if I can replicate that in my own garden. And I think what we need to slow down and do a bit is watch and learn and see what thrives given these new climatic conditions and what maybe isn't doing so well. And I think having the patience to slow down and really look at your garden and notice what grows over really nicely and what maybe doesn't. I know that from last year, I left some of our beetroot in, it went over, it went to seed nicely. I collected seed, I re-sowed it. It overwinters beautifully, and I think it's going to be something I continue to do in that cycle. It's really achievable here with the way that the winters are changing. And so I'm hoping that what I can do is start doing that for some of my more rare here or exotic plants, things like my sorrel and the eggplants, things that I'm less familiar with. I think it's time to do some observation. I think that's probably about all we've got time for today though. So if you like what we're doing, please like the video. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe, and if you want notifications, use the bell icon below. I'd be really interested to hear what everybody's thoughts are on how we can best observe and think about what's happening in our gardens in relation to the changing climate where you are. So if you've got any thoughts or opinions on ideas, feel free to leave them also in the comments below. And until next time then, do widzenia.